Hey, me again. So it turns out that all the footage for this next segment was recorded in this really weird vertical aspect ratio. And there's not enough time to fix it, so just pretend it's not there. I don't know. Okay, bye.
One of the most predominant themes in the 13th tale is duality. What does duality even mean, you may ask? Duality dives into the concept of a second self, used to explore the dual nature of humans. I would like to guide you through the book to learn about different aspects of duality: the duality of self, the duality of twins, and the duality of truth and fiction. I will go through each aspect of duality, providing quotes and an analysis that will allow you to build a strong foundation of knowledge to be able to conquer any assignment with ease. Let's get started. The duality of a character reveals the good and evil side to every individual, and the constant internal battle that comes along with acknowledging both sides of identity. Morality has always been used to depict the duplicity of human nature, as one side is good-natured and one is evil. It completes and compensates them. Every individual has a good and evil side to them, which allows them to practice morality, to resist against evil temptations. However, if one tries to hide or suppress one side of themselves, it will be destructive to their whole self. Someone who is unable to satisfy even just one side of their character's needs will be experiencing a transformation of character. The hidden works of a character highlights the failure to ground the entirety of identity. In the novel, Margaret tries to disguise herself, drawing a veil over herself and hiding behind her appearance, but Vida is able to see past her mask. It is quite difficult to hide past what you refuse to accept in yourself. The duality of self is a reminder that caring for identity means one must acknowledge the light and dark sides of their character. Now, the duality of twins may be the most eerie and literal example of duality in the 13th tale. It is evident through Adeline and Emmeline Angelfield, the twins who have polar opposite natures. Adeline and Emmeline grew up unusually, together all the time and exposed to little of the real world. Due to their unstable upbringing, they cannot live without each other, as they represent a whole person divided in two halves. They have sustained an interchangeable identity that sets them apart from other children. When they are separated, they are reminded of their incompleteness, and they understand that twins are complete and non-twins are almost amputees. Although the twins are depicted as one, their natures are contrasting. As babies, their caretaker, the missus, assigned a red towel around the wrist of Adeline and a white towel around the wrist of Emmeline. The assignment of red and white foreshadows the intensity of their natures. Emmeline had the goodness of the two children in her, and Adeline had the wickedness of the two. Additionally, Margaret had a twin sister, Maura, who died at birth, and this affected her the rest of her life. She knew there was a feeling that set her apart from other people all of her life: her sister. The loss of Maura is not just a loss of a sister, but it is more so the other half that completed her, which is ultimately more destructive. The duality of twins reveal the polarity yet interchangeable identity siblings exhibit, and how the absence of the other becomes the loss of self. Lastly, we have the duality of truth and fiction. Throughout Vida Winter's storytelling, her inconsistencies aren't just flaws, they're clues. The inconsistencies of her story serve as a challenge to the reader to question the very idea of narrative truthfulness. The unreliable narration of Winter can and should be used for interpreting reality, sometimes even inadvertently. These blurred lines between truth and fiction mirror Vida's own fractured sense of identity. Throughout her stories, it is clear that she lacks a strong foundation of character, which causes her to display of one not her own. The duality between the overt plot and the covert plot reveals the death of Vida's true character, identified with existential angst. To Vida, it is of great comfort to utilize the soothing, rocking safety of a lie, rather than facing her own reality. By the end of the novel, we know that she has reconstructed the identity of her dead sister to fill the absence of her own. As Vida says, nothing is more telling than a story. Through her lies, her truths are told.
Hey there, class. Today, I will break down the theme of silence, untold stories, and lack of human connection, and how it has negatively affected the characters and those around them. Silence, untold stories, and a lack of human connection can often lead to feelings of guilt, identity confusion, and emptiness. The two main characters that I will focus on today are Vita Winters, a woman shrouded in mystery who has not told the truth about her in her lifetime, and Margaret Lee. I will reference 5 moments in the book with 5 article quotes to support my claim on how the theme of silence, untold stories, and a lack of human connection connect to the plot and characters. The first moment that I'll reference from the story is when Margaret is questioning Vita about why the famous author lied so much during public interviews. Vita tells Margaret that the reason she lies so much is because it's more comforting to her than telling the truth. However, this comes with the consequences. The constant lies and burying of the truth creates self identity confusion for Vita. Because of the number of facades she has to constantly keep up, it confuses her and also pushes away others who could have helped her. This isolates her, which later in the story we can see that the consequences of that happening. A quote I can connect this to is goes like this: when we lie, we oppose ourselves, for we assert what we disbelieve, creating a kind of self-alienation that is at odds with personal integrity. I can connect this to the moment because we can clearly see that Vita Winters struggles to find out who she is because of the countless lies that she has told. The second moment I'll reference from the book is when Margaret finds out that she has a twin, but her other self had passed away. She was questioning herself about who she was as a person. Margaret continued to struggle with this dilemma throughout the book. Margaret's parents hid this fact away from her. If Margaret's parents had been honest about what happened to her twin, she wouldn't have struggled with this self doubt or confusion about her identity. This is a clear example of how the lack of human communication and connection can create misunderstandings. A quote that I relate to this goes like this: personal truths about one's past are essential to the formation of a coherent identity. Without them, individuals struggle to understand who they are in relation to others and to their own history. Because Margaret never knew all the facts about her, she was unable to find out who she was as a person. If Margaret's parents had come clean about what happened to her twin, she would have not faced this issue. This is a clear example of why human communication and connection is so important. My third moment is during one of the interviewing sessions between Margaret and Vita. Margaret asks Vita Winters about some of the mistakes that she committed during her lifetime, and Vita Winters responds by telling her that one of her biggest mistakes was not telling others the truth. What she did was instead bury them, and they grew to haunt her. The quote that I relate this to goes like this: indigenous stored memory can be thought of as a bone needle, a useful tool for sewing, mending, and bringing indigenous storytellers, and listeners together for meaningful engagement. This quote relates well to the moment in the story because the article teaches us about the power of storytelling and what Winters missed out on by not telling her stories. By not telling her stories, she isolated herself, and her past continued to haunt her, as it says in the moment in the story. The fourth moment that I chose to talk about is found during another interview session between Margaret and Vita. Margaret is clearly troubled with her identity crisis, stemming from the loss of her twin. But instead of opening up about it, she keeps it to herself, even when asked by Vita if anything is troubling her. And a quote that I found that relates to this goes like this: when mental health conditions like anxiety and depression are left unaddressed, they can lead to severe consequences, even including suicide. I think this quote from the article on keeping mental health issues to themselves relates very well to the story. Margaret continues to suffer in silence after not opening up about her problems, which proves the article quote correct. Silence can be incredibly dangerous to people, and we can clearly see that in Margaret's situation here. The fifth and final moment I chose is when, after Vita Winters passed away, she wrote a final letter to Margaret, informing her of how she felt when she was telling her life story to Margaret. Due to a lifetime of silence and isolation, delight, which was the familiar one, when she finally told her story to Margaret, a different light, she felt very aggravated and troubled. A quote that I found that is relatable to this goes like this: However, going out into the dark or returning to places less known takes more effort and courage. This brings me back to the notion of memory and its place in storytelling. I can relate the moment to the quote because due to Vita being isolated in the dark so long, she struggles to tell others about herself. The quote also states that to break a tradition of silence takes a lot of courage, and that's why Vita Winters struggled a lifetime to finally tell her real story to Margaret. Throughout the novel, we see the theme of silence, untold stories, and a lack of human connection appear over and over again to oppress the characters and their identities. Only when the silence is broken, the stories are told, and the human connections are healed, can we see the characters heal from the trauma they endured. This is my 5-minute breakdown for the theme.